What's happening? Thanks for joining me on this hump day to you and yours. It is very much appreciated. We have a lot to get to, and I want to start here. A huge 48 hours for the New England Patriots. That's right. Right now, we are in the middle of a very, very important 48-hour period for your football team. The LSU Pro Day is today. Just saw Evan Lazar tweet out. They're getting ready to get going down there at LSU. So you have LSU's Pro Day happening. And, of course, that means Jaden Daniels' Pro Day is happening. Interestingly enough, the Patriots reportedly also met with Malik Neighbors, wide receiver of LSU, somebody who is considered a top 10 pick in this draft. So pretty interesting that the Patriots met with Neighbors and not just Daniels while down there in LSU. UNC's Pro Day with Drake May is going to be tomorrow. Now, the expectation, as we know, is that the Patriots are going to pick a quarterback at number 3. I don't know if that's a guarantee. I personally would not guarantee that on March 27th, but that is the expectation. And if they are going to draft that quarterback at number 3, they will be looking at Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and J.J. McCarthy. We know the Patriots went to Michigan's Pro Day last Friday. Gerard Mayo was there. Spoke very highly of guys that he's looked at during this draft process earlier this week. So if they are going to be going with a quarterback at number 3, today and tomorrow, this is not hyperbolic, are two of the most important days for this franchise looking forward to the next 10, 12, 15 years. They're going to have to find some answers. Now, with Mayo's comments earlier this week, I do wonder, does this team need to put together a consensus regarding Drake May's draft stock? Again, tomorrow will be May's Pro Day. And Mayo, when talking about Drake May this week, he mentioned, yes, he has no ceiling, which I don't really know what that means. Everybody has a ceiling, but I digress. He has no ceiling, but you've also got to look at the floor and appreciate and respect the floor of the player. So just gathering what, Mayo has said throughout the past couple of months and with his most recent comments, it sounded to me like there is not a consensus across the board on May and whether or not the Patriots should be interested in drafting him at 3. Now, there could be many people in this front office that feel comfortable with that idea. There could be, Alex Van Pelt, who loves that idea. You can look at Mayo himself, who might love that idea, or Ben McAdoo. But if you're going to draft a quarterback at 3, it feels like everybody in that room has to feel very comfortable with that guy being the quarterback. Not just now, but for the next 8 to 10 years. So Mayo's comments read to me like a guy who's not totally and completely sold on Drake May as the franchise quarterback. So what can May do tomorrow to sway some of the people? If he does have to sway some of the people, what can he do starting tomorrow at his Pro Day that will help sway those people? Can he make up the ground? Can he convince people? Can the footwork look consistent? Will the mechanics be there? So when you look at all of these different things over the next couple of days, to me, everything matters. Now, of course, there's a different level of priority and there's a different level of importance with everything that these guys do. With May, it's footwork, it's mechanics. Nobody's worried about his arm. Nobody's really worried about his attitude, his approach to the game. People call him a great leader. He obviously won them over in the room during an interview process, the combine. So if it is the fact that there's not a true consensus across the board on May just yet, then what can he do to sway the group tomorrow during his Pro Day? Now, of course, I've been saying this from the very beginning, going back a month and a half, 2 months ago. This is smokescreen season, and we have to be ready for all the smokescreens. It is 100% possible when you look at, hey, why would Mayo be saying that? It's absolutely a possibility, 100% possible. I don't know if that makes any sense now that I think about it, but it's absolutely, I'm on 5 hours of sleep, so bear with me. It's absolutely a possibility that Mayo said what he said about Drake May earlier this week because he doesn't want Washington to draft May. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, I don't think what Mayo says at a press conference is going to change the thought process of the Commanders. And if it does, then that says a lot about the Commanders. So maybe Gerard Mayo is trying to sell another team on J.J. McCarthy in case the Patriots move down. We don't know what the motives are. I'm just going off of what he said. And it certainly sounded like Mayo and or just the Patriots in whole are not necessarily 100% in love with Drake May just yet. They have some questions about the floor. They have some questions about when he will be ready. And does that mean they're hesitant? We don't know. But tomorrow will be his pro day. It's a big pro day. For Jaden Daniels today at LSU, the first thing I want to know about Daniels is how much does the young man weigh? Now, he's been listed at what, 210? People might think that he shows up today at 215, 220. He decided not to weigh in at the combine. I think that was obvious why he did that. He wanted to shove as much food as he could down the gullet for a couple of weeks before he had to weigh in at his pro day because every pound matters. So how much does Jaden Daniels weigh if he does weigh in today? And he should weigh in today because he knows that's a big-time question. He's going to throw, reportedly. He's not going to run the 40, but I would love Jaden Daniels to weigh in, take the measurements, and then throw because I want to know how much he weighs. Many people, including myself, are concerned by the frame. Is he somebody who's going to play at 210, 205, 220? Can you get him up to 220? And if you get him up to 220, will he stay there? I mean, let's not get it twisted. If Jaden Daniels, weighs in at 220 today, it doesn't necessarily mean that Jaden Daniels is going to be 220 in week 6 of this season. That's not his playing weight. He's going to work out. He's going to play football. He's going to shed some pounds. He's more active, right? So just because you put the weight on right now doesn't necessarily mean you can keep that weight on in the long term. So that's the biggest question as far as Daniels' pro day. It's not what he's going to do on the field. The man could throw the football. He doesn't have nearly as strong of an arm as May does, but he can throw the football. I think you will see him make all the throws. There is some question about how much zip he gets on the ball from a standstill, and does he have maybe a little bit weaker of an arm than people believe? We'll see if that's true. But the biggest question about Daniels is the weight. It's the frame. So how much does he weigh at the pro day today? That's going to be a big number. I haven't worried about a man's weight ever. Maybe aside from my own when I get a little bit big. I haven't been this concerned about weight in a long time. I am concerned about Jaden Daniels' weight. What does he clock in at? So we got some big questions to answer over the next couple of days. And this has a huge impact on the landscape of this football team. Because if the Patriots walk away, and they might have done this on Friday at Michigan, if they walk away and they say, we're sold on that guy, we're sold on J.J. McCarthy, we're sold on Daniels, or we're sold on May, these 48 hours, beginning last night through tomorrow night, that 48-hour time period could really lead the Patriots down a certain path on draft night at number 3. So we can't mistake things. Okay. We can't look in the opposite direction when we talk about pro days, when we're talking about quarterbacks and you get the number 3 pick. I've got some more thoughts. I'll get to some of your thoughts as well. But before we continue to move on, don't forget to give us that like, the thumbs up. Again, we're only streaming to YouTube. We're trying to build this brand. We're trying to smack the trolls. We're trying to beat up that algorithm. The only way we can do that is by you supporting this program. And you support the program by giving us that thumbs up, by subscribing to the show. If you like what we do here, trying to hit 3,000 subscriptions by April 8th. So let's continue that charge. We're under 250 away from hitting that goal of 3,000 on April 8th. So don't forget to give us that thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Those two things are even more important right now than they were just last week because we're not zipping this to Twitter or Facebook. And if you're on Spotify, Apple Pods, if you can take the second, head over to YouTube and like the channel and like this podcast and subscribe to the channel as well. That would help tremendously. Rate and review, like and subscribe. All right, let's jump into the super chat here for a minute after the huddle. Looking forward to today's interview. I am too. Make sure you let me know. Maybe you already have about when you want to meet up today, but I'll be doing a podcast with some of these guys that do the After Huddle podcast. So I'm looking forward to that today. Jaden is only throwing. Yeah, that's all he's going to do. And frankly, I think that's all he has to do. I don't think there's any question about, his athleticism. I don't think you're going to change your thought process about how, he can throw the football or whether he can run or not on the field. We've all seen it. The dude is a supreme athlete. And I don't even think teams care what he can run the 40 in because he plays fast. Now, is he going to play as fast at the NFL level? Probably not. Defensive players are much more athletic. They're faster. But, when you look at Daniels, the mechanics are there. You don't have to worry about the throwing mechanics. People wax poetic about that. He's got a clean, quick release for the most part. He's consistent. He has excellent athleticism. He's a very good deep ball thrower. He's got touch. Now, the two things that you might look at, the throws to the middle of the field and the zip on the ball, as I said, when he's in a standstill in the pocket trying to deliver the football in certain spots. His downfield throws are more touchdown field throws and bucket throws than they are just, grip it and rip it 70 yards down the field. Drake May has that kind of arm. May's going to be able to chuck it down 70 yards. Daniels, not as strong of an arm. But again, I think the biggest question about him, the measurables. The hand size that people talk about. Is it above 9? The weight, how much does he weigh? And the frame. Those are the biggest questions about Daniels. And one more I would say is, has he reached his ceiling? Because he's played more football than anybody else in this draft, aside from maybe Michael Penix. And I think Daniels has played more games than Penix. Penix has been around longer because of the surgeries. But, the one thing you might also ask about Daniels, has he hit his ceiling? How much can he actually grow at the next level? Because, he's 23 years old. So what can he do more of that we haven't seen yet? But the Patriots, beginning last night and going through tomorrow night, pro day at LSU today, pro day at UNC tomorrow, they're going to get a step closer to a decision. I'm not telling you they're going to make the decision, but gathering all of this intel, talking to these guys, they will have a meeting with Daniels after the pro day today, having a conversation with Jaden Daniels, learning more about him. These are the next steps. These are the next steps that you look at. The idea of, and Rob D jumps in and says, Bo Nix started more games. I should clarify, out of the top 3 or 4 guys that we're talking about, the McCarthys, the top 10 guys, the guys who are going to get drafted in that top 10, Daniels has the most starts. But you get a step closer to the decision. You get a step closer to that decision with the more information that you gather. So a couple of big-time days. And the visits will be the final step. When May and Daniels, I don't know if Caleb Williams is going to end up taking a visit because everybody knows he's going to Chicago at this point. But if you have McCarthy and May and Daniels visiting Gillette Stadium, that'll be really the final step. You get the guys on the whiteboard. You have a conversation. You can do Zoom calls as well. But that's really the final stages. But we're inching closer. We're a month away. Tomorrow will be 4 weeks away from the draft. So we're inching closer to the Patriots having to come to that consensus and figure out who they truly want at number 3 and which quarterback they feel the most comfortable with. So we're taking those next steps. And we also can't forget this. As these pro days move along and as the Patriots have these conversations amongst themselves, they also continue to have conversations with other teams. And so homework is being done right now in preparation for trades. You have to keep that option on the table, as, both Mayo and Kraft spoke about earlier this week down in Orlando. You have to keep that on the table. So while you're watching these guys, you're saying to yourself, okay, are we good with picking this guy at 3? If we try to move down, do we think this guy could be there at 11? If we move down, do we have to move back up to get him? Are we willing to turn down a possible Godfather offer for player X? If player X is there on draft night, are we dismissing pretty much every single trade that's on the board because we know unequivocally that this is the guy? So homework is being done. And when you look at some of these trades that have been done, teams moving up for quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson, Mitchell Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, all of those guys I just named. The teams moved up on draft night to draft those players. And you're doing your homework right now. You are making phone calls around the league. Teams are calling you, and you're trying to figure out who's going to be available, when are they going to be available, are they worth it at that point, and what you can get in a trade. That's what you're working on. Aside from these pro days and gathering your information about the player themselves, you're also talking about what are we going to do with the pick. And so all these other teams are doing their work. The Vikings are doing the work. Hey, if the Vikings want to move up from 11 to 3, do they need to see more from May or more from Daniels if that guy is there to give up the extra pick it might take to work out a deal with the Patriots? So all of this homework is being done. Those guys were involved with draft night trades, but there have been other deals that have happened before the draft, teams moving up. You look back at that Colts-Jets trade when the Jets made the move for Sam Darnold. That trade happened March 17th. So that was really early in the process. The Rams-Tennessee deal. The Rams moved up for Jared Goff. That trade was done on April 14th. So just a few weeks away from right now. The Eagles-Browns deal. The Eagles moved up for Carson Wentz. That was done on April 20th. So we're talking about right now, really, the window where these deals happen. We got about a month to go. This is when those deals happen. Most of them happen on draft night because you've got to see how the board falls. However, there have been examples of deals, teams moving up because they fall in love with a quarterback during this process. Those deals have happened. The Darnold deal, the Goff deal, the Wentz deal, March 17th, April 14th, April 20th, respectively. And I would also say, because of that, I would anticipate more leaks. We're going to have even more leakage. Leakage. It's going to happen. So get ready. Over the weekend, we're going to hear an awful lot, I think, about what teams felt regarding May and Daniels, and the Patriots are going to be part of that. All right, don't forget, I've got a developing opinion after yesterday's show. Again, the 48 hours starting last night through tomorrow night. I think a huge 48-hour period for this football team to figure out their future at quarterback and to see how they really, really feel regarding Jaden Daniels and Drake May. They take a step closer today and tomorrow. Daniels is going to hit the field in a little while. All right, I've got a developing opinion after yesterday's show. But before I get to that, I want to say it again. Don't forget to give us that like, the thumbs up. Every thumb means an awful lot. We are trying to expand the reach. If you're new to the program, welcome. You are always invited. We do things a little bit differently here. We are the alternative to a lot of what you hear in this area from the sports media. We like it that way. Not to say those guys and gals do it wrong. They do it their way. We do it our way. If you like what we do here, give us that thumbs up. Let's continue to support this program so we can allow more people to view us and come on in and enjoy the pool in the back and the cold beverages in the cooler. So don't forget to give us that like. Don't forget to subscribe. Trying to hit 3,000 subscriptions by April 8th. Spotify, Apple Pods, rate and review, and the Patreon page. Exclusive content, patreon.com/Nick Cattles, Cattles. And today I'm going to drop the Patreon pod. Should be a good one. I'm going to talk about whether or not the Patriots and another team in the NFL are doing a dance around the draft and waiting each other out and having a stare down. I'll do that later on for the Patreon channel, the Patreon page, exclusive to those members, $5 a month, $1.25 a week. We do an exclusive pod, ad-free every week. We also do a Q&A and a mailbag, so you want to check that out at the Patreon page. All right, here's a developing opinion. I talked about Robert Kraft yesterday, and I did not believe that Robert helped himself or helped Elliott Wolf. And my guy, Rob D., who has been a very, very vocal supporter of this program and who I appreciate, He jumped into the comments at YouTube yesterday and said, Nick, I thought you were being too harsh on Robert Kraft. I thought you were being too harsh regarding the owner. And that made me think. And I have a developing thought on that. But before I get to the developing thought, as time would show and have it, here's Rob D himself jumping in with a super chat. Thanks, Rob. If Washington takes JJ as rumored, do you take Daniels or May? I'm torn, to be honest. Short term, it's JD, but long term potential reward on Drake May is crazy. Right now on March 27th, Rob, I'm leaning Drake May because I just think the potential there with May, you can't duplicate that kind of arm strength. You just can't. And I like his frame. I think he'll be better playing in the elements. So right now, again, we've got the pro days to go through, and we'll see the visits and the interviews and all that. But right now on March 27th at 11:21 Eastern time, I'm leaning Drake May over Jaden Daniels. That's how I feel. I know many would disagree with that. Ken Weber, $20 super chat. My goodness, Ken, I appreciate you. I don't get the McCarthy hype. He isn't a better quarterback than May is right now. So if the Pats don't take May or Daniels, I hope they got a huge haul of picks. I'd like to see a Patriots number 10 May jersey in 2024. So there's some love out there for Drake May. And again, if I was looking at May versus Daniels right now today, I would lean May. Here's the thing about McCarthy. Very intelligent, has great intangibles. He's been a winner. He was a winner on the high school level. He obviously won at Michigan this past year. I think he's lost like one game combined over the last several years. It's kind of crazy. So he's a big-time winner. He's very smart. And, for the most part, the mechanics are there. I know, Zolak was ranting and raving about how good he looked during his pro day. And I think people look at McCarthy as somebody who is a leader in the room, and he has a high floor and has a possible ceiling that he can build up on. Now, my question, and I saw Evan Lazar tweet this out the other day, and I tend to agree with Evan. I tend to agree with Evan a lot, and I think he would agree with me a lot. I tend to agree with Phil Perry. Minds think alike. But the way Evan put it on Twitter, I think, was smart. Do you believe McCarthy is a guy that can drive the car? Like, is he the bus driver? Is he the dude when the chips are down and you might not have the perfect talent around him? Is he the guy that has the extra special sauce, so to speak, to bring you to that next level? Is he that kind of guy? I look at May and I look at the traits, and I think May's ceiling is higher. So it's really, do you pick the guy who has more potential but also has more risk? Or do you draft the guy who has, done nothing but win, seems to have his head on his shoulders straight, is very impressive in the room, and also has good athleticism, a good arm, and many other on-field things that he does well. But he wasn't asked to carry Michigan, and that's no fault of his own. He just wasn't asked to be the guy. Another thing about McCarthy, and, maybe I'll find these numbers sometime down the road, and I'll remember to do this. But I was looking this up the other day. I saw this on Twitter. McCarthy's numbers, in certain situations are out of this world. Like McCarthy's numbers in the fourth quarter, his numbers on third down and fourth down, they are very good. So when teams are looking at the analytics and they're looking at all of the metrics, J.J. McCarthy would show you that he usually makes very, very, very good decisions. He usually comes through in the clutch when he's asked to, and he's a very smart guy with athleticism and a good arm. So that's what people are seeing. If you ask me, I didn't see enough from McCarthy at Michigan to tell you I'd pick him at 3. I'd be concerned about that. However, I also have to be honest with everybody. I don't watch all of the film. I don't break down the all 22, right? I'm not doing that. And I don't know the guy personally. I'm not in the room talking to him. So these teams know much more about the players than I do. Just from what I saw, I didn't see enough at Michigan to say that dude is a bona fide top 3, top 5 pick, and I believe that he can be a star at the NFL level. I believe McCarthy can be good. But do you want to draft somebody at 3 that you think can be good, or do you want to draft somebody at 3 who you think can be a superstar? That's the conversation. Really appreciate the $20 super chat, Ken. Means the world to me. All right, let me get back to the developing thought I had after Rob D jumped into the comments yesterday and said, Nick, you're being too harsh on Robert Kraft. I was doing the podcast yesterday, recording with Greg Bedard, and it hit me like a bolt of lightning. And I said to myself, should Robert Kraft step aside? Has the time come for Kraft to hand the keys to Jonathan? And I would answer that question with a big fat yes. I think it's time for Robert Kraft to put Jonathan Kraft in charge when it comes to meeting with the media, having the conversations like Robert had yesterday down in Orlando. I think it's time to give Jonathan that responsibility. Robert can still obviously be around and own the football team and hang out in the suite and still do big things and greet Tom Brady when he comes back in June. And if they induct Belichick into the Hall of Fame, Kraft will be a big part of that. Kraft will still have a huge presence within this organization and still own the team. I just think when it comes to PR, when it comes to the optics publicly, when it comes to explaining what the organization is trying to do and answering questions in a back and forth, I think it's time Robert should give the keys to Jonathan. I think Robert tends to ramble a little bit too much. Saw that yesterday. And when Kraft rambles, he goes back and forth. He gets wishy-washy. He contradicts himself. We saw that multiple times yesterday. So I think the rambling from Robert leads him into saying certain things that he doesn't want to say, and then he realizes what he said, and he tries to go back and correct it. But by that time, it's already out there. I mean, I thought his answer about the draft was the perfect example of this. He was asked about the 3 pick, and he said, well, when I put my fan hat on, I want a quarterback. But then when you think about it big picture, there could be a team that's desperate to move up, et cetera, et cetera. And then he went back to, but I want a top-rated young quarterback. And it's just the incessant rambling, and he just walks himself into some issues. And it leads to mixed messages because the fans are listening and they go, okay, well, what are we going to do here, right? Are we trying to – he mentions the playoffs. Kraft mentioned the playoffs yesterday. Okay, so you set that expectation. But then later on, as he's rambling, he says, well, that's if we don't struggle and we've got a young team. But then he talks about how he believes that it's a talented young team, even though you just got rid of Bill Belichick, who drafted the guys that are on this team currently. So it's the mixed messaging, it's the rambling that I think the Patriots need to get away from. So in my personal opinion, I think it's time for Robert to hand the keys to Jonathan and let Jonathan be the voice on a consistent basis for this franchise. Because I don't think Robert is as connected as some people think he is. An example of that yesterday was the survey conversation. The survey last year that came out mentioned that the Patriots had issues with daycare and the facilities and all of that. And there's Robert yesterday saying that he was surprised by the daycare mention. Well, obviously, nobody told Robert that last year the survey brought up the same issue. It's either that or Robert forgot. Either one of those things is not good. So how much connection does Robert have on a day-to-day basis? If he's unaware of these survey results, then he's unaware of a lot of things, which is fine. He's on the team for a long time. He has a lot going on. He's in his 80s. He's living his best life. I get it. But it really makes me feel like he doesn't have that tangible connection on a day-to-day basis. And this is something that Greg brought up during the podcast yesterday that we recorded. The fact is, Jonathan Kraft and Robin Glazer are running the operation. Now, not football decision-wise, but they're running the business. Jonathan and Glazer are running the business. They are much more in tune with what's going on in that building than Robert is. So why would you not have Jonathan be the voice and answer these questions? If he's the guy that's in there every single day, if he's the guy that's paying more attention to the day-to-day operation, then he should be the one to take the responsibility to answer the questions yesterday and address the Patriots fans about what is the plan for this football team, what would you like to see, what needs to get better, et cetera, et cetera. And again, it's nothing against Robert. The guy has been a fantastic owner. He saved the football team for all of us, right? He saved us from moving. He's been tremendous. 6 Super Bowls, been to 1 billion of them. Not about Robert, the owner. Love the guy, appreciate the guy, respect the hell out of what he's done for this area football-wise. It's just, there's a time for everybody, and the more time goes on, the more rambling we get, the more mixed messages we get, the lack of a connection. I just think if you're going to have a transition, which you're going to have a transition, why not start that transition now and give Jonathan that responsibility? If Robert Kraft wants to be a fan, I love it. We're all fans. Of course he's a fan. He was a fan before he was an owner. But you have to separate. If you're Robert, you have to separate fan from owner when you're making public statements about the team, when you're having a back and forth with the media. You have to be able to separate that, because as soon as you say the fan in you wants the number 3 pick to be a quarterback, everybody hears that. And that means that you want the quarterback at 3, which, as I said yesterday, can passive-aggressively put pressure on Elliott Wolf. So you've got to be able to split that. You can't be fan and owner in certain environments. And I think that was part of the problem yesterday. We should have heard from owner Robert, but we heard from a mishmash of owner/fan Robert. And that's when he walks himself into some of these things. And I don't think there's intent behind it. I don't think he's intentionally trying to put pressure on Wolf. I think he walks into these things because he rambles. So I think it's time. Stop trying to win over the fans with everything you say, and stop trying to be that fan when you're meeting with the media, and hand the keys to Jonathan and let him be responsible for these conversations. Start that transition. Now, I don't think Robert would like that. I think Robert wants to hang around and do what he's doing. But I think, when you look at these quote-unquote performances from Robert, I think the Gerard Mayo introduction, was the same kind of thing. The Gerard Mayo introductory press conference was the same kind of thing where, Robert's up there and he's kind of just rambling about a trip to Israel and all of these things. So I think it would be the smart thing and the right thing to do at some point very soon to hand those keys to Jonathan Kraft. All right, don't forget to give us that thumbs up. Continue to like this program. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's the only way that we can beat the algorithm and support the show. So give us that like, subscribe, trying to hit 3,000 subscriptions by April 8th, which is nice. So we want to do that. We're under 250 away. So don't forget to subscribe, and you can get notified every time we go live. Since we're not pushing to Twitter and Facebook any longer, you can certainly get notified every time we go live, which is an awful lot. 11 a.m. Monday through Friday, every weekday. And we also do some breaking news pods when big things happen. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to rate and review. All right, let's jump into some of the chat in here. And look, the chat is difficult sometimes because you guys are having, different conversations and I'm having. So I try to pick the ones that jump out. If you want to talk about what I'm talking about, you can always send a super chat and jump to the front of the line. Alberto, GM Nick, wondering if Daniels falls to 3, do the Patriots select J.J. McCarthy instead? This is an interesting question. I just thought about this morning, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I think it'll be done at a later date. I want to do it during another podcast. But Jaden Daniels, whether it's because of what they see on the field or the frame, or maybe he doesn't necessarily, and I know he tweeted out the cap thing. He might have been doing that to save face and not face questions, right? he's not going to come out and say, yeah, that's right, I don't want to go to New England, because he becomes public enemy number one. If Jaden Daniels isn't necessarily in love with the idea, a la Calvin Ridley, to play in New England because he grew up in California, played his college football at Arizona State, and then transferred to LSU, then the Patriots might look at it and say, okay, this might be a decision of J.J. McCarthy or trade down. That's something we're going to talk about a little bit later. Let's see what else we have. Mr. Snoopy, you crack me up, Nick. You're going to tell a billionaire what to do? The guy got a hard head. He ain't going to listen to anybody, especially his sons. I get that. I was a fan of Succession. I love that show. I totally get it. Again, if it was a perfect world, if I were, if I had the ear of Robert, that's what I would suggest. But as I said, he's been the owner for decades. He loves the gravitas of it. He truly loves what he does. I get it that it's not going to be easy for him, and it's unlikely that he would be willing to, give the keys to Jonathan to be the face of the franchise. I understand it. I just think it would be the best. I think it would be in the best interest for all involved. For all involved. I just think, there comes a time. There's just too much. There's too much lack of connection. He's not there on a day-to-day basis. He's just not. So I think, when you're going back and forth and you're sending the mixed messages and you're going down these trails of like nowhere, it's not helping the organization. It's not helping you, the organization. It's not helping people that work for the organization. So that's what I would say. That's what I would say. All right, let's jump to something else quickly here. I'm trying to look on Twitter to see if there's any scuttlebutt about Jaden Daniels in the measurements. I don't see anything just yet. I just see Evan Lazar posting a video of Gerard Mayo and Elliott Wolf arriving at the pro day. So I don't think anything has jumped out just yet as far as those measurables. So the pro day has not truly begun just yet. All right, quickly before we go, don't forget to like, subscribe, Patreon page. By the way, Patreon, starting next week, I'm going to actually start posting every podcast of the show for the members on the Patreon page. But the difference, no ads. That's right, no ads. So if you just like the podcast and you don't want to be inundated by ads, you can sign up for the Patreon page, $5 a month, $1.25 a week, and you will get every single episode of this show ad-free, including a bonus episode on Wednesdays with exclusive content that you don't want to miss. So that's something else that we're going to do. All right, quick Bruins take here. Great win last night. Third period comeback. We love to see it. How many times has this team lost games when they've had leads in the third period? I can't count that high. They lose leads in the third period. They go to overtime and they lose. Last night, third period comeback. Fantastic. Not only that, third period comeback on the road. Third period comeback on the road against a physical, relentless Florida team. And I know you've done good against Florida this year, but this team has driven you nuts the past couple. So on the road against Florida, down in the third period, to come back and win that game last night was fantastic. Also nice to see a couple fights. Hampus Lindholm getting involved. Marchand fighting a 6'5" dude. I like to see that spirit. Pasta, Zaka, +3 last night. Great stuff by them. McAvoy got on the board with 2 points. Not only a goal, but also an assist. I thought Swayman was fantastic, the 6-on-5 late in the third period. And I just like the response. I like the response after Montgomery called this team out. They showed up in Florida, and they got the job done. 99 points on the season with 9 games left in a bridge year. Not too freaking shabby. All right, we got a super chat here. Back to the football. With rumor of Dak most likely playing his last year in Dallas, you think the Patriots consider trading down to build out the roster with draft and sign Dak next year? Here's what I would say, DJ. I like Dak, don't love him. I'm concerned about Dak's performances in the playoffs. He's been very inconsistent. He's had a number of good things around him. He's had a very good offensive line for the balance of his career. He's had usually a good running game, if not very good running game. He's had a number of receivers, including CeeDee Lamb now that he can work with. So they've had talent offensively. Dak has come up short in some of the biggest moments. That would concern me. The other thing that would concern me is that Dak is going to be looking for $50 million a year, $45 million on the AAV. That's how the market works. You're not going to sign Dak Prescott to a Dak Prescott contract. You're going to sign Dak Prescott to, all right, what is going on with the other quarterbacks and the other salary structures? How much is everybody making? For example, Joe Burrow is making $55 million AAV, okay? $275 million total value. Burrow got $219 million in total guarantees, $146.5 million in fully guaranteed money. Justin Herbert got $133.7 in guaranteed money. Lamar Jackson got $135 million in guaranteed money. Jalen Hurts got $110. So if you're looking at Dak Prescott as an option, you are looking at least, I would say 120 or so million fully guaranteed. And you're looking at an AAV of around $50 million a year. That's what you're looking at. And some of that might be cheap. If Dak is looking to set the market, and he likely is, if Dak Prescott is looking to set the market, you're now talking about $150 million fully guaranteed, because I don't count the Deshaun Watson contract. Jimmy Haslam was out of his mind with that deal. You're now talking about $150 million fully guaranteed. You're talking probably $56, $57 million average annual value. Are you comfortable giving Dak Prescott a $300 million contract? I'm not. Because, again, in the biggest moments with a talented team, he's fallen short. So I'm not there on Dak. I get the question. I get the thought, because Dak at his best is absolutely a top 10 quarterback in the league. It's just in those biggest moments, he hasn't looked like that guy. And I would be hesitant as he gets older and a little bit more banged up, because, again, he played a physical style of football early on, especially. Not as much after the ankle injury or whatever it was. I mean, he's going to be 31 in July, but he has slowed down athletically and physically over the past couple of years. So I would be out on Dak. That would be a no. That'd be a no for me, dog. But I do understand the question. I'd much rather just draft a quarterback that has a high ceiling and roll with that guy and believe that he could be the answer for the next 10 to 15 years. And I don't have to dump $170 million on his lap. And I think he's going to end up staying in Dallas anyway. This is all a game. Jerry's going to end up paying him. It's this dance they do. All right, don't forget, give us that like. Thumbs up means everything. That's how we smash the algorithm. Rate and review as well. Subscribe, trying to hit 3,000 subscriptions by April 8th. Patreon members, I will be dropping the Patreon exclusive podcast later today, so be on the lookout for that. Tomorrow, we're going to have a busy show. We'll see what happens with Jaden Daniels today at the Pro Day. We'll have our reaction to that. We'll be looking at Drake May's Pro Day, a little bit of Drake May talk as well. And Red Sox, maybe we'll slide some Red Sox in, because if you haven't heard, breaking news, opening day is tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern. I know a lot of you will be sitting up waiting for the Red Sox. Unless something big breaks. Oh, hold on. Ramsey jumps in with a super chat. Last second, LSU Pro Day starts at 1:50 live on NFL Plus. So there you go. Measurements should be before then. I think somebody in the chat said the measurements will be starting at 11 or so. So we'll see. Some guys are out there right now. I will tell you, Malik Neighbors, holy crap. Woo! So Evan Lazar just tweeted out, Malik Neighbors had a 42-inch vertical at the pro day. And again, the Patriots met with Neighbors. If you're not going to draft a quarterback at 3 and you're looking to move down a little bit, Neighbors is an option. Dude just popped with a 42-inch vert. Not too shabby. All right. Unless something big breaks. Back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Nick Cattle Show. We appreciate you.